Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Rebelman here, back again with another video. And today's video, it will not be a normal JoJo video. It will be a video game video about a video game that I'm super into right now, and that video game is Persona. Specifically, Persona 5. In this video, me and my buddy Ezra will be going through each palace and ranking them from worst to best. Ezra will pop up on screen and he'll say something funny in his voice like, "Hey guys, it's me the Retrospect, and I'm here to talk about this palace, and it's super cool," and that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be a grand old time, so if you guys stick around, and let's get straight into this with our worst palace on the list. I'm assuming there's no surprise that Akuma's palace is easily the worst in Persona 5 Royal. To start, the story is not very great. Morgana's, I don't know how to put it, jealousy kind of comes out of nowhere in my opinion, and I think the story writers did a very mediocre job at explaining it. Not to mention, this palace is way too long. It feels longer than any other palace in the game, and I think that personally, this part of the game, this middle section, it's the 5th palace out of like, what, 10? It drags for such a long time. Also, the boss fight is not very good. I know thematically it makes sense, Kumura, this guy uses his workers as defense, he's greedy, he doesn't really look at them as even human, so he's using them as a shield, but it doesn't make the gameplay very fun. It's honestly really aggravating to play. And on top of that, I really never found Haru or Mr. Akumura very interesting as characters. In fact, I don't think I spent any time with Haru, and Mr. Akumura I probably care the least amount out of any palace ruler except for, like, Momentos. So, yeah, not very fun. Though, there are good things about the palace, like, I think Sweatshop is actually a pretty good song, and the palace looks really good. I think that, look-wise, it's very pleasing to me. And the airlock puzzles are pretty fun, actually, I don't mind that. But overall, it's just the worst in the game. By no bound is it super bad, but it's definitely not good. Akumura's Palace is that friend that you invite to the Valorant 5 stack in Ranked, and everyone else there is like gold and above, and this guy is literally silver.
Momentos is a strange one to talk about as it's nothing like any of the other palaces on this list. It doesn't have a distinct palace ruler, and is also structured very differently than most palaces as it's procedurally generated, much like the old dungeons in Persona 4. One of my favorite parts of the palace is its setting. I love how dark and eerie it is, while also rocking an amazing palace theme that is best described as just very unsettling. You will spend the most time in this palace as you unlock the ability to go there very early on in the game, and will progressively complete it by doing what are called Momentos requests. These are side missions which help gain XP as well as possibly be required to progress some social links. These can be fun sometimes, but most of the time I found them boring and repetitive, while there's very little variety between each request. It's basically always go, find bad guy, beat said bad guy, and then they regret everything they've ever done. As you go farther down Momentos, it will get more difficult as you go on up from each floor. The bottom of Momentos is where it starts to feel more like your usual palace. Taking Morgana down in Momentos, you will end up solving floor puzzles to proceed further, as well as fighting any enemies in your path. It's not super complex, but I did find the floor puzzles to be pretty satisfying after solving them. The palace ends with you fighting the main boss, the Holy Grail, which feeds off the desires of the public consciousness. This really shouldn't even be considered a boss fight, as you are supposed to lose to get into the final act. Overall, while Momentos is a faithful reference to older Persona dungeons with a good setting, it struggles from repetitiveness and a lack of a real boss fight. While I don't think Atlas should completely move on from this idea, I do think it could definitely be further improved upon.
Shiros Palace. Shiros Palace. Yeah, I probably have the least interesting take on this palace ever, because it's kind of whatever in my opinion, mid at best here. The palace looks rather boring to me, it's not very interesting, it's a bank. I think other palaces do the whole heist thing better, Madarame's. Kaneshiro himself is kind of a boring antagonist, I don't really care about him at all, other than his voice actor is really funny. Price is a great song in the OST, probably elevates Shiros Palace to 7th place just for that, and the boss fight is alright. To be honest, the only really standout thing about this palace is that Makoto gets introduced, and, she's best girl, so that's pretty cool. It's just kind of whatever. It's just a 7th place palace, alright? It's just kind of okay. Futaba Palace is rather good. I mean, it's pretty unique to start with considering the fact that we're not really going into a bad person's cognitive world. We're going into a actually very good, sweet, wholesome, innocent person's cognitive thinking, and just seeing how much they hate themselves. It's really sad, honestly, yeah. It's just a very unique palace just for that itself, but not to mention the OST is great. Days When Mother Was There is an amazing song, very, very good. Also, this palace has really good puzzles. The binary code ones are great, the painting ones are great. Overall, just really good puzzles. Cutscenes are wonderful. We know which one I'm talking about. And that's about where the good things end for this palace. Don't get me wrong, it's great, but I have some gripes with it. One of them being that this palace's boss fight ain't it, Chief. It's really boring, and I don't really care about it at all. The only boss that's worse than this is Akumura's, and honestly, the bar for Akumura's boss fight is not very high to pass. Not just that, but the aesthetic of the palace stays very samey. It's very stagnant. It doesn't change at all, except for when you're in the town area outside of the pyramid. Overall, the palace is good. It's just there's a few things that bring it down, so it sits comfortably here in 6th place. Hey, Madarame's Palace. Hey, Gabagoo. Hey. I cook it to paint. Madarame's Palace is super, and I mean super underrated. No one talks about it, even though it's very good in my opinion. To start, the Madarame and Yusuke storyline is great. Oh my god, do I feel for Yusuke. That man has been beat down, betrayed, and I feel so sorry for him. Madarame is a scumbag, and it just makes me so sad whenever I see the way that Yusuke reacts. It is a great, and I'm talking a great storyline for that character and a wonderful arc. Not to mention, the painting puzzles in this palace are supreme. They're good, they're really awesome. And not just the painting ones, but the laser grids, those are pretty cool also. Big fan of that. The boss fight's good. This boss fight teaches you about the mechanics of weakness to certain elements. That's pretty awesome. The palace looks great. It's very heisty feeling. This is literally Payday level heist stuff here, but we're talking Payday 2, so it's the good one. Overall, the main problem with this palace is that it's just not as good as the other 4 on this list. That's it. It's a great palace. I love Madarame's Palace. I couldn't have asked for a better second palace to follow up Kamoshida's. This palace is wonderful.
The very first palace in this game does a fantastic job introducing the player to the core mechanics of the game, such as all-out attacks, negotiating with shadows, and baton passing. This palace also acts as the opening for the introduction to the game, with a truly hateable villain, Kamoshida, who keeps you motivated to go through this palace. The overall design is also very good, as it's themed as a medieval castle with the shadows taking the form of knights. Every little detail of the palace reflects upon the true nature of Kamoshida and shows the disgusting truth behind his character. Its very mature themes immediately show to the player how this game will play out, and that this is just the beginning of the many evils you will face in this game. I think the navigation of the palace is also really fun. Finding will seeds, hidden treasures, they're all really satisfying to go out of your way to find, such as finding the secret passageway behind Kamoshida's self-portrait. The boss fight for Kamoshida's Palace is also a strong start for the game, as it teaches you basics like guarding against strong attacks, attacking specific targets, and sending out party members. It's a great boss fight, and it really goes out of its way to set the standard for the rest of this game.
So guys, Shido's Palace. Oh my god. It's so good. It's so good. The set pieces in this palace are just easily some of the best in the game. I love the idea of just being on this cruise ship, flowing, and just going right through a destroyed Japan. It's so cool and interesting, and thematically it's super awesome. Shido is a top 3 corrupt politician in media. Number 1 being Senator Armstrong, and number 2 being Funny Valentine. But Shido's a solid third. He's great. The palace is paced very well. It feels long, but not super long. It feels very just intuitive and fun to play. Rat puzzles are just super good. I love them. They don't even go on for too long. They're just generally fun. Top 3 boss fight. Rivers in the desert, blasting at full volume. I remember playing that palace and getting to the boss and hearing Rivers in the desert for the first time, just being like, oh my god, it's peak. Akechi is my favorite Persona character, and his arc hits a boiling point here where like his arc finishes. His arc peaks at that moment right there. He's great. I love him. And lastly, Ryuji sacrificing himself at the end of the arc is just amazing. It's great. I love it. I love it. I love this palace. It's such like a good arc in the game. Speaking of arc, the theme arc, super underrated. Someone needs to get on that. That's awesome. Such a good palace. I love it.
Ah, yes, the palace hyped up for the entire game, so much so that you could say Alice hyped it up as much as the fanbase hypes up Persona 6. Which, speaking of, where the hell is our announcement, Atlas? It's about damn time! Anyways, back to what I was saying. Sei Nijima has probably the best looking and most stylish palace in the game, rocking what is easily one of the best palace themes I've ever heard. It's extremely fitting for the setting and really gets you into the mood to gamble. We also gain a new party member that accompanies the Phantom Thieves, Detective Prince himself, Akechi. The whole gimmick of the palace is pretty simple but fun. You ascend through the palace by obtaining a specific amount of chips by playing games, which ends up unfortunately being rigged against you. You and your team have to find the controls to rig it into your favor. What I think is one of my favorite parts of the palace is the final floor, when you play 2 different games of adventuring through a dark maze and soloing as Joker in a duel-off minigame. Besides the games, I think the palace also really does a great job developing Sei's character and showing the struggles of sticking to true justice as she has to go through in her job and as a role model for her younger sister Makoto. Finally, we have the boss fight against Sei's shadow, which uses a roulette gimmick, fitting the theme of the casino palace. The boss fight is fun and fairly difficult, but with a good strategy and party lineup, she isn't too hard to take down, which then opens us up to the game's final act. It really isn't a surprise to say that Maruki's palace takes first place, as it's easily one of the best parts of the entire game. This palace does so much to elevate everything about Persona 5 and its final act by further developing characters such as Maruki, Akechi, and Kasumi. Or should I say, Sumire. This place is unlike any other in the game prior, as it is being ruled by Maruki himself, who is doing what he believes is right and best for everyone else. The palace does a phenomenal job at making you think differently about your own morals, as well as portray its theme of accepting the truth. The overall setting of the palace being bland and somber is very fitting with the tone of the palace, as we are getting insight as to what trauma Maruki had been bearing inside him. Finding all the videotapes that collectively tell Maruki's story and eventually tell how he gained his persona. It was just executed all so well. You really do feel for the guy. Then there's the test that you have to pass to continue through the palace by trying to understand in Maruki's eyes what is right or wrong. I absolutely love the psychological aspect of this palace, and it's a lot more thought-provoking than some of the previous palaces. Not that they didn't have good messages behind them, but Maruki's just had so many layers to it. Then it all concludes with an epic showdown against the man himself, showcasing one of the most difficult boss fights in the game. This boss fight is extraordinarily well done, and after getting through that frustrating first phase, you get to witness one of Persona's best character moments with Maruki's monologue, a voice acting performance like no other, and an epic fistfight to the end, officially concluding the game.
So yeah, that's the end of the video. If you guys liked it, consider subscribing to me and Ezra's channels. Anyway, this has been RoboMan, and I'm signing out.